Cena. It's lovely to see you
Hi.
today. We connected recently when I was talking about the book that I've just written, The Anxiety
Yes.
Revolution. And I think I reached out to you and you said that you had a story of anxiety that we could connect and talk about.
Yes.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about your story of anxiety and how you kind of dealt with anxiety and all of that?
Absolutely. So first, Natasha, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today. I just wanted to really quick give an intro if some of your viewers or my viewers are new to me and they don't know who I am. My name is Cena Martin. My website is xcenamartin.com, and I am a intuitive success coach. So I help women really create businesses in life they just love to live through different strategies, mindset, confidence, and business strategies, of course. So anxiety is really, really close to home for myself and my family. Actually, there are multiple people in my family, including my mother, who suffer from mental health issues, including things much deeper than anxiety and depression, things like multiple personalities, things like that. So anxiety has been, I had anxiety when I didn't know I had anxiety. I had it very young as a child. I can remember, just, how we do as little girls, and we play with dolls and we have different things we like to do, and we daydream about what we want to be when we grow up. So I can remember having these feelings of fear towards certain things, but before I knew I was afraid of them. And anxiety has played a really big role in the woman I have become as I'm growing up. I feel like I'm still growing up.
Yeah.
It's played a
I'll
huge.
never grow up. Never ever grow
You
up.
never grow up.
And you don't want to. You don't want to.
Not at all. Not at all. And it's played a huge role in the woman I've become. It's played a huge role in the type of business owner that I am. And it's played a huge role in, the way I work with my clients and my students, because I just, I feel like anxiety, to some extent nowadays, it's almost praised on certain platforms. A lot of people talk about it. A lot of people talk about, like, your book is bringing awareness to healing it, dealing with it, how to overcome it. But I was watching a Netflix series the other day, and there were, some kids who were in the limelight, like those Instagram famous kids. And they were almost talking about it as if it's, it's like going out to drink. It's a new accessory. So I feel like the conversation around anxiety is very important. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, which I'm sure you know, because of your book. And it's a topic I feel like more of us should talk about, and not praise it or put it down, but just talk about it. We should talk about it more.
I like the idea of having conversations about it, but I think the conversations that people are currently having about it, it's saying it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to say you have it. It's making it more acceptable. And to me, the whole, it's nothing, yes, they're fighting stigma of mental health. But if you look, and I mentioned this in my book, if you look at where these mental health labels come from, they're actually created by people who have links to the pharmaceutical industry. So it's like saying, here you go, it's okay to have this thing, but it doesn't actually exist as a label anyway, really. We just made it up. So what is important to do is to look at, and what anxiety is about, it's about fear. So you said, well, as a little girl, you were creating fear, and when you didn't know you were creating fear.
Yeah.
But it is us creating it. And it's
absolutely.
a threat that hasn't happened yet. So it's about jumping into the future, about the worst possible scenario, about things that haven't happened yet. I talk a little bit about the invisible comfort zone as well recently, because we create fear when we go out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
But actually, when you come from a place of joy and curiosity, there isn't a comfort zone. You don't have that kind of limitation. Yeah, but I know what you mean about the conversations. Like, over here we have the royal family talking a lot about mental health. I watched Prince Harry the other day talking about it, but Prince Harry has actually started noticing that in the conversation he was having on the news, he was saying that a lot of the mental health system, the things that are in it, are not quite right. So I thought, that was quite good that he noticed that.
Yeah.
Because I think lots of celebrities are jumping on the bandwagon with it as well, because actually it's kind of like, if I came forward and said, I have anxiety or I struggle. When we say we struggle, people identify with it, don't they?
Right.
So it's like vulnerability attracts.
Right.
But actually, it doesn't help anybody to deal with it because all our whole system is about managing. It's about managing, it's about struggling, but we create the struggle.
Right. And I think that's the key, Natasha. I think that's the key of what you just said. We create it. I talk a lot when I do my coaching. I talk a lot about energy and how we as humans, and particularly women, how we as women really create the realities we're living. Everybody does it. But like you said, with anxiety, I was having this conversation with my fiance a couple of days ago, and he's in the music industry, and he's creating an entire album about mental health this year. And we were debating it. We were saying, he was like, well, what if anxiety isn't real? What if it's something that was created for the masses?
We need to be having. Yeah.
Right.
Everything. But a lot of people, they're just believing things they're told. They're not questioning things.
Yeah.
And that's the conversations we need to be having. I think, about
because
everything. Not just about anxiety.
The thing about it is you could feel something, you can go through something, and you could say, I don't know what this is. And the normal, unfortunately, for a lot of humans and a lot of women, is to know you're going through something and to let somebody else tell you or let somebody else diagnose it for you. And that brings in that allows things like this to happen. So if anxiety isn't real, why are we also afraid?
Well, yeah, you give your power away when you ask.
You give your power away.
You look for the experts, or you look for the answers, or you ask let someone else give it to you. Instead of like what we learn as coaches is to follow our own path and to you mentioned intuitive earlier.
Yeah.
To be intuitive is we can kind of feel our way, I think, in terms of where we're going and what we're doing. And also, I mean, I just did a video about like people sabotaging their results because they expect results too quickly. But sometimes you have to go down what you might view as the wrong path at the time, but we're exactly where we need to be. So I think as coaches, we learn to let go of, we're not worried about being in the wrong place, or because we're always learning. Wherever we are, we're always learning. So I think we've learned to kind of operate in that way, haven't we?
It's a way of saying, I put this quote out on Instagram a couple months ago, and it stuck with me. It's so profound. It said, the universe delights in playing this game with you.
Yeah.
The universe loves playing this game with you. And I think a lot of us, when we get to the space, see, me and you can sit in, and somebody may be watching this on whatever platform it's on, and saying, that's insane. How do you feel? How are you okay with not having any security? How do you feel okay with not getting the results you want yet, or constantly bouncing around, not having a solid place, having security? But the thing about it is, the thing about overcoming anxiety, and the thing I've discovered with it is that when you get okay with knowing that every day is a result, every day, every single thing you learn, every next step you take is another result. And when you get okay with this space of saying to yourself, this is my life, I'm not going to figure all of this out in 2 weeks or 48 hours. Life is long, or life is short, however you want to look at it, but it's still a long-term thing. And when we go from not having to control, it's long-term. And when we go from not having to control and fix every single little problem and worry about every little turn, it gives you more space to breathe.
Yeah. You mentioned that people might say, how do you do that with no stability?
Yeah.
I see that being able to let go and not having to control things, and being able to show up and just be present and see what comes about, and to be kind of delighted and curious about that. I see that as being the most stable place you can be.
As you can possibly be. But see, that's a mindset. It takes quite a while to get there.
Yeah.
It takes a while, and you need to be around people. You need to be listening to audios and personal, all types of things to get you there, because what we're talking about is not a place a lot of people know how to get to by themselves. That's the truth.
See, I see it as well as, I think I put this in my book, that it's not so much a place to get to, it's a place to come from as well. So it's coming from that place of love and curiosity, coming from that place of presence. It's easier, I think, to come from that place than to get to it. Because when we're trying to get to it, people try to control things, and they try, they put positives instead of negatives, but they created the negatives in the first place, so that's twice as much work. So
you see it as a source, as a place of within.
It's a place to come from, I think.
The place to come from.
Yeah, so it's like, I just focus on kind of being present. I don't even focus on it. I just show up in the present moment, not creating any thinking about anything, because none of my thinking is real anyway. It doesn't, whatever I create, it's like what you said it's about being in that place where every step is a movement in the right direction, isn't it? It's like just being okay with where you are. If you feel like you're always in the right place because that's exactly where you need to be, then you're okay with where you are, and also okay with who you are. I think a lot of people struggle with feeling good enough and permission and worthiness and all of that stuff. And when you're okay with who you are, that helps, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awareness of yourself,
yeah.
and what you're worth and what your spirit is worth is so valuable. It's so valuable, and it's so big. And I love what you just said about coming from instead of getting to. I think, and that made me think too, because, I teach that, but the wording of it, because, looking at it as a location or looking at it as a destination, and it's somewhere you have to travel, instead of saying, I can wake up and be like this.
Well, if you're already there, you have nowhere to go
to travel. Right. You wake up in the morning and you say, hey, I'm going to take. So let me ask you then, Natasha, what do you do every day to get to that space? Do you get to that space before you pick up your phone in the morning? Like, what do you do?
I think, like I said, it's not a space to get to. It's a space to come from. So what I would say, and I'd say that would be in the book as well, is that it's about doing less, not more. So when I get up in the morning, I'm not always in that space. When I get up in the morning, I was late for school this morning. My car actually has a problem, so I had to use a different vehicle. So I got there a little bit late, but I'm kind of like, so we're late. It doesn't matter. We're late, and that's it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to stress about it. We're just going to be late, and that's fine. So I don't worry about it. But then when I come back and I start my work, I suppose it's creating space is really important to me. So like I might then sit down and not start any work for like 10 minutes. Because I want to create some space to think about, what am I doing today? Where would I like to come from? What would I like to put out into the world? What would I like to, not so much achieve, but I think it's about where I am at the minute. I think it's about giving and sharing and just sending things out into the world more than anything.
I agree.
Yeah. So I think for me to kind of when you say get into that space, I suppose it's what do I need to let go of? What do I need, creating space to just be present. I think that's what it is, because we're not always present, are we? Like, if I'm rushing to school, I'm saying, I don't mind, we're late, that's it, you'll just have to do. But it's just getting into that, just creating some space to be present, I think.
But what I've noticed with a lot of my tribe members and women I work with is it's a buildup. So this is why I said getting to, because you can look at it from both perspectives. Now, back to like my story a little bit, like I said, this was something I dealt with as a little kid, and I didn't even know I had it at the time. And it may not have been anxiety. It might have just been fears placed on me from the adults around me, which is usually the case.
Energy, isn't it? Because
exactly. Yep, exactly. And when that's placed on you, from parents or adults around you, a lot of women, they let it build up. And, so many of us are family oriented. So when you're family oriented and you're always around your family, well, they keep emitting this confused, chaotic, oh my gosh, everything is horrible energy, and it fills up inside of you. It begins to get built up. So then when you say to a woman in her 30s or a mom of 4 or a mom of 2, okay, get to the space, be present. She's like, what are you talking about? Right?
Yeah.
Right? So it's really hard for them.
But I think it's hard to separate, because when you've got all your family around you and they do project onto you kind of who they think you are and stuff.
Yes.
Right?
That's it.
It's really awareness again, because when you're aware of that and you know that that's what they're doing, and you know that they're well intentioned, or you know that it's coming from they're coming from a place of fear maybe, and it's their fears showing up, but that it has nothing to do with you, because it's it's about. So what I do then is I get curious about them, and I say, I wonder why they're doing that. I wonder why they doing that behavior, and I might ask them. And what I realized, something that I realized earlier, actually, I was having a conversation with my parents earlier, and something that I realized was that they have a perspective, that they see things through a particular frame, or their perspective based on their experience. I have a perspective. I see things through a frame based on my experience. They're never going to see it through my frame. They're never going to see my perspective. And it doesn't matter how much, and I'm not going to see theirs either, because theirs is from a different, they're from a different era, they're different things. We can kind of agree to disagree on things, but to change people's perspectives is, you're not going to do it, because you see things through different perspectives.
Different eyes, absolutely.
Yeah, but to know that anything that they say is about them, and to get curious about that. So that's why I come from a different space with that as well, in terms of like, I always talk about the story where I was doing a talk, and it was about how I set my business up, and a guy in the audience said, it's okay for you, you live at home. And I said, well, actually, I don't live at home, I'm a single parent, and I have 2 children. And he said, well, you should have made that clearer. And there was a time I would have questioned myself and said, but why should I, maybe I should have made that clearer. But I actually got curious, and I said to him, what does that story of it's okay for you do for you? And he kind of looked inside himself, like, thought about it for a bit. And then he said, it keeps me stuck.
Wow.
So so that was really powerful. So that's what I realized, that anything anybody says to you, it's about them, it's not about you. So when people say things, so when you're in that position where everybody's kind of dumping stuff on you, and I saw a video the other day about people being like garbage trucks, they'll come along and they'll dump stuff on you. Yeah. It's really about I think focusing on yourself and knowing what you're doing and having faith in what you're doing is so important, because when you're in that place, you can hold on to your presence, and when people come along with their garbage trucks, you can go, actually, I don't want that stuff, it's not mine, it's yours. You can
have it back.
Yeah. So I think that really helps you to make that energy. But as a business owner as well, it's so important to spend time around people that inspire us.
Absolutely.
And have some, it's nice to meet you today. We've been friends on our social media for some time.
Yes.
And I was saying to you that I noticed, I remember seeing you kind of building your business up over the years. So that's really nice to actually kind of meet and chat today.
It's amazing.
So as peers, it's nice to connect as peers. And I think as business owners, it's so important. If we spend all our time with people who make us feel like that you described the lady's feeling like, then it's not good, is it, either? I mean, to understand that it's nothing to do with you helps, but at the same time, you have to balance that and get around some really kind of positive people, or creative people, or interesting people, or whatever people you want to spend time around.
I can remember, this is such an important topic. I remember going through this process, and I was saying to myself, gosh, I don't know anybody who's an entrepreneur. I don't know anybody who owns it. I can remember saying that. I was working in the daycare. I hate it. I was making like $8 an hour. I remember. And I remember sitting in like this dark, cold room. And I was saying to myself, I want to be this coach, and I want to do this, but I don't know anybody in this field. And just the intimidation alone would bring the fear. And once I got past that space, and once I just opened up my phone, or, social media and just the World Wide Web has brought literally the world to our fingertips. There's nothing you cannot find out, no person you can't meet now, because we have so much access. So what you just said about getting around people who are like-minded and working with people who have the similar and same goals as you, like, that's easier now than ever.
It is. I remember when I started in coaching, thinking I didn't know any coaches. And then what I did was I started following some coaches. And then what you do is you start comparing yourself to those coaches and saying, my God, look at this, I'm never going to be like them. They're so far ahead of me.
And her website is so pretty.
Look, they've got all this stuff and I haven't got anything. But what you realize that's not useful. And then you realize, like, after a while, that you're just building, creating all the time, and it gets bigger, and then bigger opportunities come in, and then you're just growing and creating every day, aren't you? And learning
every day,
a massive learning
every
journey
day.
as well. But it's so important, like, to find those people, isn't it? To be around, to, you know. Yeah,
it's so important. It's detrimental, especially to anyone who's dealing with any type of fear, anxiety, any type of mental health. Like, the energy with another person can change, your entire day. You can spend 10 minutes with someone who's a little bit more above, or a little bit, I don't like the word above, but ahead of what you're trying to do in your field or in the work you're trying to do. And just having a conversation with that person for 10 minutes over a coffee can change your entire day.
Yeah, I think you can kind of hold your space and hold your energy if you don't question yourself when you're in the company of that person. If you know that what they say, and if they criticize you or whatever they say, it's about, that's my son coming in, it's about them and not you.
Yeah.
That you can do that, but it's so important to have people around you of that, the energy that what I've discovered as well is that there are people who will learn from you, and there are people you can learn from. And it's not to say you can learn something from everybody. You can, but I think the you've got to face forward. You've got to face this way. You've got to be around people that have maybe done bigger things than you to stretch yourself. I think that's so important.
That's so important.
Although you can learn from everybody, it's like you want to expand your energy and your mind too. So you need to kind of face that way and follow people who are further ahead or whatever. Yeah.
Well, like, whatever you focus on is going to grow. Whatever you focus on expands. That's just how it works. And it's so important I love the fact that you just said this, Natasha, when you said, if you can hold your energy and hold yourself when you're around these other people, you can really get the most benefit from it. I did not know that. When I first started getting around, I did not know that when I started looking for mentors and all these 6 and 7 figure coaches who are already doing these things in their business. I didn't know. So I became friends with these people. I got around them, started networking with them, and then went into over attack of the self. And, the comparison came back to anxiety. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's so important really to be aware that you're keeping who you are as a person whole the entire time. Even if you feel like you don't know exactly what you're doing, or you don't know everything about yourself.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
Nobody does. Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
If you're okay with not knowing what you're doing.
Exactly.
That's cool. But
right.
Also knowing, if you know that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and if you know that you're good enough, then it's easier to hold on to who you are, isn't it?
Yep.
And then you don't let other people's energy, or you don't go in your head and doubt yourself when you're in the company of other people. You don't let other people's energy kind of affect you.
Oh, because you learn how to almost have like a hedge around you. That's something really powerful I learned last year. I learned how to protect my energy, and I keep a hedge around myself. So if I'm talking to someone and I don't like where the conversation is going, or the person is being overtly negative, I'll just like, okay, have to go, someone's calling, and I'll go, because I've learned that there's nothing more valuable than how I feel about me. And you can't let anybody else.
It is knowing that your time and your energy is valuable. And actually, I think when I started in coaching, my focus was on the client. Or most of my focus was on the client. And then it came, I had to focus on myself too. And now I think my focus is on my energy is probably the most important thing. Because if my energy goes kind of the wrong kind of way, then it's going to not be good for clients. So it's that energy is important. So actually, it's kind of like what I want is important. And then it's a process, isn't it? Mothers often say they don't want to focus on themselves, they focus on their children. And yet, focusing on themselves puts them in a better place to look after their children.
And when you don't focus on yourself, here's the thing, because me and you both are moms. So here's the thing about that statement. You're vowing and you're making a decision to put yourself down when you say, I don't want to focus on myself. I just want to focus on my kids. You can't not focus on yourself and just focus on your kids. What would you do if you didn't sleep a week because you were just being a mom? You would pass out. You cannot do it. So, you know, the truth is, that statement in itself, it's from a place of love, right? It's all of that. But the truth is, you have to find 15 minutes to focus on yourself. You have to.
Yeah,
right?
It's like an untruth. So it's like when people say I'm not focusing on myself, they, like you said, they can't not focus on themselves, because
Right.
you have to. You are. You're just maybe not seeing that you are. So like, I like what you said there when you made that point, really.
Yeah.
People do say all the time, people say things that isn't a truth, but they're saying it like it's a truth.
Yeah.
Not really
Yep.
seeing that they are doing that, maybe, but in a different way. So it's like, as coaches, we would help them see that, wouldn't we? Yeah.
I believe there's a big separation between untruths, like you said, or we'll call it beliefs. There's a big difference between beliefs and between, you know, what you're really doing. So you can believe you're doing one thing over here, but in reality, you could be self-sabotaging.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to the frame thing. So if you're looking through your perspective and your frame, and you're seeing it in a particular way, but someone else will come along. This is another thing that coaches are useful for, is seeing a different perspective, isn't it? And giving an outside view. So it's like someone else will come along, and I find, like, every conversation I have, I learn things. So I can have a conversation with a total stranger in the street, or a friend, or like a conversation like this, and I'll learn something. Because it's that every time you get a different perspective, don't you? You get a different view. So yeah, in our view, we might feel we're doing something for a particular reason, or in a particular way. Someone else will come along and totally knock you off that, because they say, well, actually, have you thought about this?
Completely off of it.
Yeah, have you thought about this? Yeah, that's right.
I love it. I love, what does Bob Proctor call it? Paradigm shifts, right? Yeah. I love when people do that, because, you know, you could in a day be looking at a certain situation. Maybe let's say your finances, right? Let's talk to like new coaches for a second who have anxiety around being new coaches. Yeah. So you could be a new coach and have a perspective of your coaching or what you're able to do with your expertise, and be afraid of not paying the bills every month because of that. You can have someone who's been a coach for 10 years, and I had this happen to me, come into your life, have a conversation with you, and your positioning of how you see it is completely changed. Like you just said, in one conversation, because the person gives you a paradigm shift. They say something.
Mindset, anyway.
And your mindset is completely it's 180.
It's lack is a mindset. Lack and abundance is a mindset. You know, people can have a lot of resources and still be in lack, can't they? And people can have very little resources and feeling gratitude and abundance.
Feel gratitude, yeah.
Financial freedom is a mindset.
It is.
You can be financially free. It doesn't matter how much financial stuff you have. So it's all about mindset, I think. Yeah.
So I want to ask you this. I'm still going through the book, but in the book, do you talk a lot about how mindset relates to anxiety? Or is there do you take it from a standpoint of anxiety is a real thing, this is how we solve it? Or do you take it from a standpoint of anxiety is a mindset?
I don't think it's anything to be solved. I don't think anybody needs fixing, because I see anxiety as us creating fear. So it's all about, it's future pace, it's about a perceived threat. And often what people do is they'll have anxiety, maybe 4 years ago they had anxiety about a particular situation, then they'll avoid the situation for 4 years, and the situation might have changed. But what they think about it or believe about it, like you said about beliefs and reality being different, what they believe about it hasn't changed. So they're still creating the fear, even though the situation has changed. And that's what we find a lot. It's like when people have had traumatic experiences, it could be, you know, I had domestic abuse experience in my background, but it could be like 4, 5, 6 years ago that they had a traumatic experience, and they still create the fear where they don't need to, because that experience isn't happening now. Do you know what I mean? So we create suffering. We create suffering and pain with our thinking about things.
We create suffering. That makes so much sense.
So when I talk about anxiety, what I say, I think our connection went a little bit unstable there. But what I talk about when I talk about it in the book is that we need to do less. It's about letting go. It's about what we talked about at the beginning about, you know, being okay with where you are, being present, being curious, coming from a place of love, exploring the world, and creating the experiences that you want. Rather, you know, most people with anxiety want to create peace. They don't want to create fear. But when what we focus on expands. So when we focus on creating fear and creating anxiety, that's what we get.
I love that.
When you ask them what do they really want, most people don't know because they haven't thought about it. There's a few kind of pointers in the book in those ways. But yeah, it's mostly about doing less, really. So it's a few simple shifts. So it's like the shift from the head to the heart. So instead of being in the head and thinking, we're in the heart and we are contributing. We are being of service to others and things like that. And it makes it a lot easier because it all disappears.
That's what happened to me. That's one reason I wanted us to do this conversational type of format is because I can't remember. I didn't know what it was. I told you. Yeah. I did not know why I felt afraid to do everything, every step. And I looked at it as, okay, I went to solving it with my spiritual beliefs. That was my way of solving it because I didn't want to create any more fear. I did want to create peace. I did want to create the space where I could work and I could be creative and I could be a coach and really good at what I do.
Did you?
So I took to, I didn't like you said, listening to my heart more.
I wanted to create that. I didn't want to create that. So were you aware that you were creating it then by that point?
I was very aware, yes, because I knew all about law of attraction. I knew all about my energy and how it related to my material world around me. Yeah. I knew that. So I did know that the anxiety wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me. Yeah. And I knew that where I wanted to go and my anxiety weren't in alignment. So I had to do something about it to get it out of the way or to release it, we'll say. I like
what you said, I knew my anxiety wasn't me because I think people identify with these things. And I am a depressed person. I am depressed. I am anxious. That's identifying with it at that level. And I think the awareness thing, that's really important because what a lot of people do is they blame the situation for making them feel anxious. They blame other people for making them feel anxious. And they get into this kind of victim role. And you can't change it from there. You can't kind of get out of it. So it's being aware that you are creating it is a really important place to be, I feel.
Yeah. It's such a place of power. It's a place of power because I've had friends, I've had people in my, who I know personally who have been like clinically decided, that they were anxious or depressed or whatever. And once they get that, once the doctor says, oh, you have it, it's like, oh, that's who I am. They stay. They choose to stay. They do. They choose to stay, right? And I'm so glad I never went to, I'm not going to say this way. I'm so glad I never got to a space where I had someone tell it to me and I accepted it as who I was. Yeah. I'm glad I never did that.
What happens? Because when I worked in mental health for 16 years, and a lot of times people would come to me and say, my psychiatrist told me I'll be like this forever, or my doctor said I'll be on medication forever. Yeah. And they just believe them. And I would say,
they believe it.
The one question I would say is, how do they know? How do they know? Can they read the future? And then you see them start kind of questioning it then and thinking, oh, hang on a minute. Yes, you're right. Yeah. How do they know? These people are human beings, yeah? And a lot of the people who are doing, if you go to, I used to go to my doctor for different things, just for general health. And he would say, Natasha, what do you do? I have so many people with anxiety, I don't know what to do with them. So I would go in and he'd start asking me questions because he knew that I worked in mental health. So lots of doctors are mental health trained over here. I don't know about in the US. I think in the US, you've got the DSM book that they use to diagnose. And most of the research that I looked at actually came from the US. And there's something called the Citizens Commission for Human Rights, which is a good organization. And they look at, in the mental health system, like abuses of power and all of that, and people need to. But one of the things that I've been concerned about over the years is that people make their own choices, that the people can make their own choices because they have all the information available. When you just go to an expert and you have a diagnosis and they tell you what it is, you don't have all the information.
You don't.
You haven't looked at where does that diagnosis come from, who created it, what are their links to other things, and I think all of that is really, really important. Look into psychiatry, look into all of it, and you'll find out other things. So it's very interesting. If you look at the pharmaceutical industry in America, and ADHD now, lots of children are being medicated. Children under 3, it's a $1 billion industry. Really, it's huge. So when people get a label and they're given a label and they accept it, you become a consumer.
Yeah,
and it's really important to know that and to have choices and to be able to make those choices, because people with anxiety, they go to the doctor and they're often given anti-anxiety medication, which takes the edge off. They're encouraged to manage it. It's all about management. But you, like you said, you've had anxiety, and knowing that you created it is such a position of power to be able to not create it anymore. I think that's a good place to be.
It's very important. And like I was saying, it's a very tricky line when it comes between mental health and prescription or medication or diagnoses for it. Like I said, I never went to a psychiatrist, or I never went to anybody to ask about it. I didn't. And I remember actually when I had my son too, they wanted to diagnose him early on with ADHD because if you met Prince, he's a ball of energy.
My son is a ball of energy too.
Oh, he's a ball of energy, right? But that doesn't mean he has ADHD. So like you said, I just feel like the mental health industry here in the US, it has a lot of work to do. Yeah. There's a lot of work to be done.
If you look at the CPHR website, it tells you on there that there's no evidence that ADHD exists. There's none at all.
Exists, right?
But mental health diagnoses, there are no tests for mental health illnesses. There are no tests for any of the labels. And psychiatrists, they know that. They'll tell you that. And even the doctors, a lot of doctors know this as well. But when you work within the system, you have to work within the system. You have to go with it. You just write a prescription and off you go. You don't question it. So I think it's important that people know these things, really.
It's very important, and I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because not only just getting your book and reading about different ways you can deal with it here, and then the other ways, like for example, I teach spiritual strategies and different things you can use, like meditation, like mental awareness of yourself, daily self-love rituals, stuff like that. Things that can holistically help you deal with your anxiety.
And I think
it's so important. It's so important to find ways.
Reading a book is not, what my book does. It talks about, it'll show you what to do, like doing less and the space to come from. It's got like all the whole process in it of doing that. But reading a book is not, a lot of people with anxiety, they're looking for the answer out there. And what it says in my book is that you are the answer. That if you focus on the journey that we've been on as coaches, learning about ourselves, because you can only take someone as deep as you've been yourself. So we've had to embark on our own journeys. That's been amazing. And, that's what, in the book, really, it's about people embarking on their own journey, finding out more about themselves. What do they want? Following their dreams, doing all of that stuff. There's no substitute for that, I don't think. In terms of getting to know yourself and being in that and taking that being in that position of power, owning your own power, showing up, all of that stuff is
so important.
Yeah. So being present as well is
it's the starting point. I really think here's the thing. When you don't spend much time, like for example, let's go back to the mom who says, I don't put time out for myself, I just focus on my children. Yeah. When you do that for so long, when you've made that a habit, a routine, like I said, it can be hard to sit down and say, what do I want for myself? What's my goals? Some people haven't thought about their goals in 10 years.
Yeah.
So, sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to embark on this new journey and I'm going to learn about me and who I am and what's important to me. That can be, a scary place, but it is the starting point. I really believe that being present leads you to knowing who you are, because the more present you are, the more in touch you become with who you are. It just naturally go hand in hand, right?
And that's what you want for your children. You want for your children to know themselves. You want for your children to follow their dreams. So it's like, they're not going to do that if you tell them. They're going to do that if you show them. They're gonna follow you and
they're gonna follow your action.
By you, So to me, that's the thing that you can do. So I think that's so important. Really.
Yeah, it's top of the line. I feel like it's the first thing before you ever say I'm going to change careers or be an entrepreneur or whatever. Before you say you're going to do anything, you really have to sit and get to the space of clarity first and decision. And anxiety is not something. Here's the thing: you can get that while still having anxiety. You can accomplish a whole lot. Like, people don't know this, but my first, like you said, Natasha, you've been watching me since I started. I did my first 2 years of business with anxiety. Completely afraid.
I did my first couple of years of business, feeling not confident enough.
All of it. All of it was there.
Make it kind of stuff.
Every last bit of everything you could possibly think of being afraid of. You're too young, I can go through the names. I remember, you're too young, you're not poised enough to speak, everything, every last thing you could think of as far as comparing yourself to another person. Yeah. You can go through that and still feel that and still say, I'm going to figure out who I am. After starting my coaching business, I started my own journey. So there were points where I had to work through not feeling good enough, not giving myself permission to do things, not feeling worthy. So I had to take that journey as well. There were points when I had to let go of things and the past and stuff like that on my journey. But it's like, when you come out the other side, you realize that it was easy. You could have just let go of it all, but at the time you didn't want to, It was a struggle. Yeah, there is no struggle. The struggle is you. And that's so important that you just said that. And it's so important. Coming out of it on the other side, you feel like, okay, I can literally do anything that I put my mind to at this point in stage now, because you've overcome this. Like you said, it's an internal. I think it is a struggle, but it's internal.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I've got so much faith in myself now. I know I can do anything. But what I find now is that sometimes the people around me haven't got that faith. But it's inside me, and because it's inside me, maybe that's why I can say I can still hold myself now in that place. Being around whoever, because I know it's about them, not me. So it's like I can hold myself in that place and I can reflect on things. And people say things. I had a conversation the other day and I thought, you know what? I have a thing about that, and I journaled it and I unlocked something again. Do you know what I mean? Because I went down that hole and found out what that was. But it's like, I think because of that struggle, because of that internal, knowing who you are thing, that's why I can hold that space now, and I'm clearer on who I am, and I know I can just show up as me. I'm just going to be me, and that's it. And that's important. Yeah. Whereas I wouldn't have maybe done that before that struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole key to it, like you said, is letting things go. That's the key. The key is just, people think freedom is not having any problems, not having any financial issues, that's not freedom. No. Freedom is not, not having.
Still get challenges, still get problems,
do.
What I do now is when I get a challenge or a problem, I go, okay, that's fine. I don't want to focus on that because it's going to expand and I'm going to get more. I want to focus on what do I want to create. So I focus over there on what do I want to create. I want to acknowledge it, but I want to focus on what I want to create.
Yeah. And when you do that, it's really simple. It's as simple as deciding, focusing on what you want, and then just working. And here's the thing. This is like the process of manifesting, or if you don't know what manifesting is, really taking something from imaginary, from your mind, and making it physical reality. So it's really just the process of looking and saying, I'm deciding, this is what I want. And then you focus on the result and you constantly speak to the result, right? And then you do your work, but you're doing it in faith. You're not working to get you're working to let. You're letting it happen.
You let go of the outcome of the result.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You take the action then. That's right.
And you just work in it, and you work in it as if you already have it. And I think that's
sometimes as well. Like I'll write lists and I'll say, this is what I want help from the universe with. This is what I'm gonna do. And I'll write these 2 lists, and they'll come in. Those things will come in. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I was saying, even with anxiety, you can still work through it, because even if you have anxiety, you can still say, this is what I want, this is what I'm focusing on, and I'm going to work every day regardless of how I feel about it. I know the peace is already mine.
You starting where you are with what you have, because that's a saying, isn't it? Starting where you are with what you have. So wherever you are, whether you've got anxiety, whether you've got mental health, whether you've got any of these things, or whether you're a single mum, or whatever it is, that you feel your challenge is, or that you feel you're not ready yet, just start. That's it. Just start. With anxiety, it's like people avoidance makes anxiety worse. So if they just start moving forwards with something, they tend to prove themselves wrong anyway. So all the things they're creating in their head about how it's going to be, because they're reading the future or whatever, when they move forwards, they prove themselves wrong. So that's another thing that's important.
It's so big. I want to share like a little story really quickly.
Yeah.
Because I think this will help. I think this will help a lot with just an example of moving through that anxiety. I like giving examples. So I remember, I guess the best example for me to give on this is speaking, because I was really, really afraid. Here's the thing. I was really afraid of speaking on a platform like this. So I remember when I first started out in my coaching business, and the first thing I did was I created like this little mini 30-page ebook or whatever. And it was from the heart. I took 6 weeks to make a 30-page ebook. Ridiculous. But so I did the ebook, and I was putting it out there, and I was putting out my stuff on Instagram, and my videos on YouTube. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm really doing here, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I can remember sitting in my little dark apartment. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. I remember there were bars on the windows. My son was 4 years old. And I was like chugging along. I was still working my little $8 an hour job. Let me not call it little. But I was working my job, and I was like, I had this faith. I was so afraid, but I had this faith. So I focused, and I said, okay, by year's end, I want to have this type of business. And I wrote it out. Yeah. And then I focused on it, and then I started working. I did the ebook, I did the videos, and I put the stuff out there, not knowing what I had no clue what I was doing, right? Yeah. And just going through that process, I got knocked down a couple times. I can remember one time having to overdraft my bank account to pay my Wi-Fi bill so I can continue to do my YouTube videos, because if I didn't have my Wi-Fi on, I couldn't do the video. And I just remember it in that little apartment with the bars on the windows and the 2 bedrooms. And from that space, there was this transformation that happened, because I started practicing the being present, like you said. Yeah. Every morning I would get up for 5 minutes. I would drink a glass of water, and I would just sit still on the floor, and I would be present, and I would just stay present. And I was like, okay, Cena, I know who you are. I know your heart is pure. I know what you want to give to the world. And it was almost like, I don't know if your beliefs, but it was almost like God was talking to me. Like I felt it. So I would do that every single day, with the anxiety, with the lack of confidence, with the not knowing how to market, all of that stuff. Right. Yeah. And boom. I mean, from there, I got booked for a speaking gig off of somebody that found me on YouTube. Yeah. Did not know this lady from a can of paint. But she emailed me, reached out to me. I didn't know her. I promise you, Natasha. I didn't know this lady from a can.
Just funny, can of paint. Yeah.
I did not know her from a can of paint, but it just all came together. And then from there, I got more comfortable, because she almost became like a mentor, and she helped me, with my confidence, and she helped me kind of get back up and go. But I share that story just to say, not the rags to riches thing, but I share that story to say to you, it really is about the movement and the belief. It really is about that.
I think actually, the more you're taking action, what I've noticed is that when you're taking action, it inspires other people. It inspires people to say, oh, well done. It inspires people to get in touch. Well, I did my book recently. A lady got in touch and said, would you speak on a summit? I really want you to speak on the summit. Then I sent the thing out to you, and you said, should we do this chat? So I actually got asked yesterday to speak at a big expo at a massive hotel. So it's when you're taking action, I think it's, and I love what you said about sitting and getting present, because rituals have, I think when you do rituals, it does really help. Journaling I've done a lot of throughout my time, you know, but rituals in terms of like I've had affirmations. You change your affirmations as you move through, I think, as well.
You definitely do. You never keep the same.
I was reading an article yesterday about the brain doesn't know the difference between a imagined event and a real one. So it's like creating what you want. So when I did the Women Inspire Leaders thing and I launched that, I sat down and journaled what is it that I want to do. So I created space, sat back and journaled it. And then when I put 2 posts out on social media, I got 170 contact requests from women all over the world. So from 2 posts, but it was because I sat back, and it's like, you know, if you create space to be present before you do anything, and I think that's so important. I think people just run in and do things sometimes.
Yes. Oh,
and if you create space, it's to get more powerful, isn't it? It's to
yes.
You create space to step up and own your power before you do something. Or
it's like a launching pad.
Clarity before you do something.
It's
that's right. And you can just create more stuff easier, I think, from that place. Yeah.
Because you just put yourself in the energy. We talk about energy so much on this call. It's like putting yourself in the energy of all the good that's like circling over your life. It's already there. And when you get present, you put yourself in a space that you're open to it.
Yeah.
So it just comes.
What people do see is they go, I'm no good, I can't do this, I'm not worthy. And their energy's going down, 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 down. But when you get into that place, you go, I can do this. Cena, you know, it's like, you know, like you said, God's talking to me. I can do this. You know, you can tell yourself whatever. You can build yourself up. You say affirmations, you do your journaling, whatever.
Yeah.
You build that clarity and confidence upwards rather than chipping away.
Bringing it down.
I do stuff on confidence, and I always say that we have confidence, but people chip away at it. Or you allow other people to chip away at it. If we just didn't do any of that stuff, it's there. You know, it's the confidence is there. So it's like creating confidence from, like, say, creating space and doing stuff like that instead, rather than taking on board the energy of other people.
Yeah, or constantly thinking you have to build. That's something I learned too. It's a huge paradigm shift, especially for anybody dealing with mental health or anxiety or depression. You think that because you want something that's huge, a huge goal, that you have to go create it. And once I realized, you know, I can't remember exactly what movie it was. It might have been Interstellar. I think me and my fiance were watching Interstellar. And Interstellar, in the movie, we were talking about how everything is like already exists. What you want already exists, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw the movie, but in the movie, they were going to other planets trying to find a new Earth because Earth was like dying or whatever, and they were trying to find a new place to start civilization.
Yeah.
So we were talking about it, and we were like, well, you know, what if another Earth, it already exists? Whatever you're looking for is already out there.
Yeah.
You just have to,
That's saying again, isn't it, that what you're searching for is searching for you, kind of.
Exactly.
And I listen to Esther Hicks a lot, and she always says that, you know, it's already there in the vortex, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's right. You just have to get on the same energy as it. And I've noticed, like, there are ways you think something's massive and it's like this far away, but there are ways to. Have you read The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell? That's a very good book. So it's like what I did recently with my book was I sent the book link out to agents of celebrities and stuff, and asked them to pass it on. Because if you can get it into the hands of the influencers, I want that book to spread because I want to help more people. But the message needs to be shared. So if you can get it into the hands of influencers, then it's things have spread quicker by being in the hands of influencers than it has if you do it the building way. Kind of like that. So there are different ways you can. When I do Women Inspire Leaders, we leverage, isn't it? We leverage our knowledge and our networks. So again, it's kind of a faster way to do things. But also, you know, with the Women Inspire Leaders thing, when I want to work with Women Inspire Leaders, I want to work with leaders, I started to talk about myself as a leader more, as well. So I thought that's what I need to do. Who do I need to be to create that? So there's all of that as well. So yeah, there's loads of different kind of ways to do that. But visualization is a huge one, isn't it? Because that's Napoleon Hill used that a lot, visualization.
Yeah, well, see, it's the science. Here's the thing. There's all these different ways you can approach this topic and ways you can begin to just work. But the truth is, there's a science. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4 step-by-step way to start creating things in your life that you wanted to create. And like you said, Napoleon Hill, you mentioned Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the steps. It does. Yeah. Because if you just visualize, let me give you an example. If you just visualize and you just see yourself, in the dream house, the dream, let's just say it's not even monetary. Let's say you want to get married and that's your goal. You just want to be married. So you see yourself married and having a relationship with the perfect spouse. You do the affirmations every single day, but you still choose to believe that you're not good enough for somebody that can love you, and you keep dating like the worst kind of people. It's not going to happen.
I think that's what happens. Like in terms of that example, people they want what they want is one thing, but what they believe is another, isn't it?
Completely separate thing.
And they sabotage and stuff because it doesn't match.
It has to all. I think Abraham Hicks said that. I think it was Abraham. It all has to be in a line. Everything has to match. It has to equal. It has to equal out. And if it doesn't equal out, then you're missing a component and you're kind of doing this work almost for nothing, because if you just visualize and affirm it, but you don't walk it every single day.
And also, if you listen to people around you and then doubting yourself, then that's taken away from
the work.
You're creating the work. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It's very important sometimes to, I don't like to put it like this, but put yourself almost in a bubble. I actually did this before. I told this story before where I was going through that phase I just told you about. So after I came out of that and I went into this space where I wanted to like full blown be a coach and be a full-time entrepreneur, I called my family and was like, I'm not talking to anybody for 3 months. I can't. I need to be in a bubble so I can believe in myself. They were like, she is insane. She is crazy, but it works.
I've done that. And then I had a conversation with my parents earlier where they were trying to tell me like how to eat a cake. So I'm eating a cake and they go, don't you want to do it like this? Don't you want a plate? Don't you want to? And I went, hang on a minute. I'm eating a cake. and then they go, well, I'm with your son. When you break up your children, you want to bring them up like this? And I go, hang on a minute. This is, don't tell me to bring up my children. Don't tell me to eat a cake. So then we get into this discussion then. All of this. But I'm still adamant. I'm like, I'm just me and that's it. And, I don't come here telling you how to do stuff. So just
don't do it, right?
So you can like not talk to them for 3 months, or you can just go, we're not going there. We're not having that conversation.
Whatever extreme you want to go to, you have your life.
But I also saying that, I also understand they're looking from a different perspective. They're looking from a different lens. They're coming from a different place. It's about them when they're saying that, it's not it's not about you. Find it difficult to let go sometimes. Yeah.
That's a huge tip. It's not about you, it's about them.
No.
That's huge.
There's stuff you can learn in it as well, like they taught me, about you've got to stand on your own 2 feet. You've got to do things for yourself, because sometimes we can hold on to that security bit as well, can't we? Being supported and stuff like that by people. So they teach you things. There's stuff to learn in it, but I think it's being able to separate what is about you and what is about them from that, really. Yeah, and not questioning yourself, knowing and holding the space of holding who you are, because people always project onto you who they think you are.
Yeah.
But it's being able to hold who you are, even if you don't know who you are completely yet, but yeah.
It's so important. This was a great conversation. I'm going to share this out with like my tribe too. Natasha, can you tell them the name of your book? Like share a little bit about your book?
Yeah, I'll tell them a little bit about me too, because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
My name's Natasha Davies, and I'm an entrepreneur mindset coach. And what I tend to work with leaders or creative people in terms of individual coaching, and I do workshops as well for organizations around things like mindfulness, presence, confidence, all of that. But my background was mental health, so I wrote this book on anxiety based on 20 years, 16 years in the mental health sector, 4 years as a coach around anxiety, and it's called The Anxiety Revolution: The Simple Shifts to Take Back Your Power, because I feel it is about accountability, taking back your power. The answers are within you. They aren't in, nobody else has got the answers. It's about finding that within yourself, really. Being present and learning not to create that stuff in the first place.
Love it.
Wonderful.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I want to share this out with the link to the book, because I really think, not just because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, but this is just a topic so many of us need to talk about.
Yeah, I think, like we said, the conversations we need to be having are conversations which kind of expand us and ask the right questions. Not so much conversations that it's all lovely when someone says, "Oh, I have that too," or "Oh, I feel like I'm not the only one." It's all lovely there, but actually, we need to be expanding our possibilities, or whatever we do, not kind of closing down and feeling safe, because what that does, it helps us to feel safe, doesn't it?
Yes.
When actually life wasn't meant to be lived within that safety anyway, because that's not living, that's just existing. And that's what a lot of people with anxiety say, they're just existing and not living.
Yeah.
If you want to live, you really have to go outside of that.
And I'm so for that, because I used to feel that way. I used to feel like I was just here, and now it's a 180. It's completely different.
Yeah.
And
it's just a shift, really, isn't it? It's not a great deal of kind of stuff. You've got to shift. It's being accountable for it, knowing you're creating it, being present, coming from that different place, taking your own journey. It's all of that stuff that really helps. Yeah. Well, thank you for having this conversation. It's been great. It's been fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we have to connect again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Cena.
Absolutely. Bye.